Good morning, artists. Happy Wednesday morning. So far on our Mother's Day special, we have been working on drawing flowers. On Monday, we drew flowers that were based on the circle in the middle, something like a daisy or a sunflower. And we looked at all of the different ways that you can draw petals to get different variety, different shapes. On Tuesday, we worked on flowers that looked like they were based on a tulip, with those kind of three flowers that you're familiar with from when you were a child, kind of the teardrop shape in the middle, and then the two that go out to either side like this. But then we added variety to that by adding a few more and changing up the way the petals faced. And that added some really beautiful options to that. Today we are going to work on how to fill in this space in between, because we want this to look like a full bouquet of a wreath. We're going to add leaves, and we're also going to add things that sort of look like little buds, so that you can include those in with your drawing. So today, again, we're going to start by adding something that looks sort of like a vine. So let's go ahead and add just like a wavy line, kind of use up half of your space on your page, because underneath it, we're going to practice drawing a sort of a version of lettering. I am left-handed, so I'm not very good at calligraphy. Although I love it, I think it's beautiful, I kind of have to look at letters as if they are shapes or forms instead of writing the way you would, the way you see people do beautiful calligraphy. But let's go ahead and start with some leaves, different kinds of leaves that you can choose from, and we'll start from the smallest and the simplest, and we'll get a little bit more complicated as we go to the other side. And we want to add some space also for some things that might look like just little budding flowers. That's nice for filler space. So on one side, let's go ahead and start over here. I want to add just these little budding, little tiny leaves like this. These are easy, little teardrop shaped kinds of things. Now, in order to expand on that a little bit, you can open it up and add more pointed at one end and a little bit more rounded at the other end. And when you do that, you could go back in here and add the middle of the leaf, and you can even add a couple of veins if you wanted to go back in here like that. See, that makes it more interesting. Then we can open it up a little bit more. Instead of having them so close, we can actually add longer ones like this. Still long and skinny. Think about these as maybe more like the tulip flower leaves that we worked on in our springtime drawing. A little bit more open, sort of S shapes like this. And again, you could go back in there if you wanted to and add some veins in there. And you could also do some things that are more spiky. Make these little leaves very close together maybe. These kind of remind me of ferns or some kind of shrinking kind of, what do we call that? Bashful plant, I think is what we used to call that. So instead of having points, then you could also do the teardrop shape is like this, where the point is at the end and it's rounded at the bottom. Instead of doing that, have it more pointed at the bottom, where it attaches to the vine, and rounded at the outside. And look what a different kind of a leaf that creates there. Okay? Then you're going to start getting into ones that are a little bit more complicated. Maybe the leaf is a little bit more scalloped or wavy on the outside. So you want to start with a wavy line like this, and then come back down with another wavy line on the other side like that. Long and skinny if you wanted to. And again, you could go back in here and add some lines to create your veins. And then what I think these look like is more like oak leaves. The last one is where you do really big waves, maybe 3 on each side like this, and then go back into the middle with your vein like that. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Something like that. Okay, so going from the very small all the way up to a little bit more fancy or unusual, kind of wavy. I love wavy lines. I would much rather have a curvy line than I would a straight line. I'm just that kind of that organic kind of a feel kind of a person. Now in between these, if you wanted to fill in spaces, there are several different kinds of little buds that you can draw. Okay, one that I really like is to create, go like this and around like this. Really easy, and then a little dot on the top and connect it. And you can have many, many of those. Another one that you could do is very similar to what we did over here with these little bluebells, what I think look like bluebells, is you could draw that U shape like we did before, but instead of having a petal in the middle, just have one like this, and again with that little dot. I don't know why in folk painting it seems like they like to have those dots on top like that. I think those are pretty. Another one you can do sort of looks like a paisley. You can draw that in. Let's see, make sure I do it properly. It looks like a teardrop shape like this, but then you extend it and kind of do like that, and on the inside you do a smaller teardrop shape and include that. And all of these are supposed to sort of look like buds. And then finally, if you start with 2 circles down here, you can do another paisley, sort of a shape on top of that, like that, and connect those. I think those are really pretty, don't you? And you can do as many of those as you need to fill in. See how I kind of filled in this space and to make it look more interesting. And always, you can always do kind of a curlicue or a tendril. Anywhere that you see an open space, you can add one like that. To me, that makes it look like the vine is growing and it's reaching out, it's stretching. And you notice you wouldn't normally have all of these different kind of leaves on one vine. One plant would not produce all of these different kinds of leaves, but it doesn't matter when you're drawing. If it's folk art, you can make up your own rules about it. Ones that look like teardrop shapes where it's pointed at the end and more rounded towards the vine, like these. Rounded at the vine and pointed at the end. Kind of S shapes in some of these. Then you've got the ones that are more spiky. Small ones would be closer together. And then you have the ones that are pointed at the vine and more rounded at the end. Now bigger leaves, you might actually want to have a stem that goes back to the vine that'll make it look more convincing as a leaf. The smaller ones, you can kind of just make them look like they're attached directly. Like that. Let's see, I want to add another little curlicue in here. There we go. Okay, so those are a different kind of leaves that you can choose from all in one place. Again, when you have a sketchbook like this, you're kind of creating a catalog of things that you can go back to and refer to so that later on, if you think, oh, I remember drawing this, I want to use that now, you can go back and refer to it and not have to recreate everything all the time. Now, For block lettering, I taught my students how to do this. They always had a really tough time figuring out how to make something that looked different from just their handwriting. And most students really don't know how to do cursive anymore. So let's start with a very simple way of doing block lettering. So if you would, I'm going to write "I love you, Mom," because that's what I'm going to put in the middle of mine. And if you do it in all capitals, it's much easier because rounded letters are harder to do than if you just have lots of straight lines. So you can choose which way you want to do yours. I'm going to do mine upper and lowercase so that you can see what that looks like. Okay, so now that's basically the way you would write, right? But if you go back in here, remember we're doing all of this very lightly so that we can go back in here later and erase, because we will need to do some erasing. And you're going to create blocks around the letters. And you want to keep them the same distance all the way around the letters that you've created, like this. You see how that creates a thickness? And when you go back in and erase this, you've got a block letter, like that. Very easily done, right? Let's go ahead and try it. It's very easy if you only have straight lines, right? If you don't have straight lines, like if you have the O, start on the inside and then on the outside like this. So really you're just kind of thickening it up. Try and stay consistently the same distance away. And the other thing I didn't suggest was that you draw them a little bit further apart than you normally would, because look how they're going to kind of connect to one another, which is okay. I think they look more interesting that way. And then you want to go back in and just erase the original lines that you used to create your letters. Try to keep them a consistent length or width away from the original line like this. In other versions of the letters, you can choose to make your horizontal sections thicker and your vertical sections thinner, but we won't do that right now. Oh, sorry. I forget to do the blocks. I'm just tracing around the outside edges on some of these. Now where it comes in really handy to do inking is you don't actually have to erase them now, because you can go back with your ink pen before you erase the inside. And just ink around those areas that you want to keep. Change or modify the shape if you don't like the way it looks. Or how close they are together. And there you have some very simple block letters. And if you wanted to, you could actually mess around with the inside a little bit, a little heart in there. Okay, as I've shown you, once everything is dry, then you want to go back in there and use your eraser and erase out all of those pencil lines. It's the reason that we draw lightly and we use pencil for the entire thing until you get it just the way you want it. Tomorrow we'll work on a couple of other different ways that you can do your lettering, and then on Friday we'll put it all together. We'll see you later.